Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Don't you go anywhere, because I'm about to do a movie review. Hey, welcome back. I'm Ian. This is Opinion. And if you heard that dork in the intro to the intro, I'm about to lay my review for Mary Poppins Returns on you. Two things I want to get out of the way right away are, one, this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, I would love you to come back and share your opinions with me after you've seen it. If you don't care, proceed. Number two is I want to invite you to like this video and subscribe to my channel. See that little thing right down there? You can press that, or you can press the button down below. Always leave a comment. I want to hear from you. Let's go. I have three favorite Disney films, and the 1964 Mary Poppins with Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke is pretty much right up there at the top of the list. I'm going to let you guess what the other two are. So here we are in 2018, and Disney is inviting us back into the world of Mary Poppins, only it's 20 years later in the early 1930s in England during the Great Slump, which is their equivalent of the Great Depression. The Banks kids are all grown up, and a year after the death of Michael Banks' wife, the family is in financial turmoil and are in danger of losing their family home to the bank. Turns out George Banks acquired shares in the bank a while back, so it's a race against time to find those documents and show them to the bank as proof. A lot of banks in this. So I had a lot of feelings going into this movie, and I had a lot of feelings coming out of this movie. There was good, there was bad, there was meh. So let's get into that. Probably the number one thing you're hearing about from this film is the performance of Emily Blunt as Mary Poppins, and I'm pretty much on board with that. I thought Blunt handled the character really well. She left her own personal thumbprint on it. You know, it wasn't just her doing an impression of Julie Andrews playing Mary Poppins. I mean, she really did make it her own. I would have liked her to be a little less sharp and a little more warm and approachable once in a while. I thought that she really brought out the very angular sides of Mary Poppins in this particular one. Blunt pulls the character off to a T. Her Mary Poppins is precise and quick-witted, dressed to the nines, a little bit haughty, and a little bit hottie. Woo-woo!
Cheeky.
As far as stuff that I love, the highlights of the performances for me were Emily Mortimer and Ben Whishaw as Jane and Michael Banks. And the kids were fantastic. I thought that those five characters were probably the most truthful, most honest, and realistic characters in the entire movie. They brought a lot of heart to what they were doing. The children are adorable. They at least don't sing enough. I wish that they had kind of their own flushed out full song. Mortimer and Wishaw's performances as Jane and Michael, I totally bought it. They were lovely. A lot of detail. A really rich texture to their characters. I love that they were written to have shades of their parents. Like, you know, Jane is a union activist and Michael has a porn stash. One of my favorite scenes in the film involved the family's Royal Dalton bowl, which was chipped and needed to be repaired, so they had to go on a little adventure. And it definitely mirrors the going into the chalk painting in the original Mary Poppins. And what I love about it is when she spins the bowl, it turns into a zoetrope for a second, which, if you don't know, that's like an early version of animation. Speaking of animation, yes, it is the return of 2D animation combined with live action. That was a huge innovation when they did the original Mary Poppins. The costumes. Can we talk about the costumes? Costumes were fantastic, especially the costumes in the animated sequence. You should go and take a look at those yourself when you see the film, because they did a little trick with that. Mary Poppins herself, I mean, she looks like she was stitched into her clothing. She is just seamless and perfect, never has a hair out of place. She looked just impeccable. I mean, she was practically perfect and a bag of chips. There are some cameos in the film, as I'm sure you've heard. Dick Van Dyke makes an appearance as the senior bank manager who we left a younger version of in the 1964 version. His appearance is a little bit Deus Ex Machina, but nonetheless charming. I mean, it is comical and whimsical. Dick Van Dyke is a comic luminary, and he can get his dance on. He's in his 90s, and he's dancing on a desk. The actress who played the original Jane Banks makes a very small cameo in this film called The Elegant Lady. Angela Lansbury is a welcome addition in the final sequence of the film. Rumor has it that Julie Andrews backed out, so they gave the part to Lansbury. But she's a little cutie pie. She does look a little bit like she knows her dialogue is kind of crappy, but she's selling balloons, so give her a break. Speaking of breaks, we've reached that first fork in the road where I want to talk about a couple things that were not good, not bad, but kind of like meh. The movie did feel like it took a little bit to find its momentum and get going. I would say like the first half hour or so, I was like, woo, okay. Mary Poppins' return, her actual return in the film, was super fast and didn't seem to have an impact on anybody. She just landed on the ground, started talking to the kids. They're not like, oh look, a woman just flew out of the sky. How did that happen? Okay, let's bring her home. Nobody had any reaction to her just flying out of the sky. I've seen that summer before. In the family attic, there are relics from the original film. So you go, oh, that's Mary Poppins. I remember that. Michael pulls out the snow globe of the cathedral from the first movie, and he's like, I don't know why we still have this. I'm like, I don't know either, because Mary Poppins packed it up and left in the first movie with it. And then there's the issue of the kite itself, which was part of a lovely moment in the first movie. And in this movie, Michael himself is going, I don't know why we kept this. I mean, here he is with this beloved childhood object that connected him to his father and represented a pretty pivotal moment in his young life. And now he's just ready to throw it away. I mean, where would Disney get an idea like that? Oh. I want to take a little sidebar in the middle of the road here to talk about cinematic recycling and cinematic nods. It's pretty inescapable to notice that this film recycles and reuses most of the formulas that are memorable and worked from the original Mary Poppins. A glaring example of this is the use of Lin-Manuel Miranda's character, Jack. I mean, he's very obviously meant to be a bookend to Bert from the 1964 film. Bert was a chimney sweep. Jack is a lamplighter. They both kind of serve as fun-loving, whimsical, innocuous companions to Mary Poppins. I mean, you see where we're going here. Another example is Meryl Streep's character, Topsy, which is very obviously an Uncle Albert, except she's got a dusted-off Sophie's Choice dialect. They even recycled a scene that was originally supposed to be in Mary Poppins but didn't make it and ended up being in Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Ironically, with Angela Lansbury, David Tomlinson, and 3 little English kids. That's weird. It would have been nice to see them break the template and go out of the box more in this film. There's a very distinct difference between giving a nod to something in a film and flat out repurposing something from one film to make it look almost exactly like that in another film. Let me give you an example. This scene from Hercules is obviously a nod to the training sequence of Karate Kid. This is not a nod. This is flat out repurposing from something that already exists. It's giving you basically the exact same thing with a few tweaks. I have to give some credit to the Triple Little Light Fantastic number. It is fantastic. There's no disputing that the choreography is out of this world. These guys are flipping around on lampposts. I don't even know how they did half of that stuff. I'd be in traction. Although this was weird and seemed more like protest than Poppins. Who knows, maybe it was a nod within a nod. Speaking of the lamplighters, they turned them into some hybrid of newsies and BMX racers, which served no purpose. Bum bum bum. Okay, let's get to some stuff that I really didn't think went so well in this film. Starting with the plot. One of the most glaring things about the story is that they set up that time is of the essence. They've got to get the papers to prove that they have the proper money so that they can save their house. And, you know, they're running out of time. I think they have about a week. And yet, because they're so glued to the idea of following the original Mary Poppins formula and kind of the adventures of that, the kids who are trying to help their parents are constantly getting sidetracked into these little adventures. And I'm like, hey kiddos, hey. And I'm not going to tell you where the papers show up at the end because I don't want to give away all the spoilers. And it's one of the dumbest things ever. And not only that, we've got the the bad bank manager. One of the funniest things about the villain to me, played by Colin Firth, who is a wonderful actor, but pretty forgettable in this film, is that he's a guy who will take your house, rip up your official documentation, throw your papers in the fire, and deny they ever existed. But if he tells you that he's going to wait till midnight to have a meeting with you, dag nabbit, he's going to wait till the stroke of midnight. One of the things I like the most about the original film is that it's character-based. All the characters have growing to do. All of the characters have something to learn from what's going on around them. I mean, even Mary Poppins isn't off the hook in that film. She has a little moment where she's proved to be a little bit fallible, you know, and her parrot's like, I know how you feel about those kids, Mary Poppins. And she's like, shut the hell up. And that's engaging to me. That's interesting. This is a beat the bank plot. I mean, the Banks family is actually doing pretty okay. I mean, the dad is a really good guy, and he actually kind of gets scolded for a minute for being reasonably volatile and upset only a year after the death of his wife, you know, while trying to raise 3 young kids during a depression. I mean, that's a little stressful. But even they were trying to push like some big awakening on him, and I was like, he's fine, man. He'll be all right. The kids are adorable. They're well behaved. They take good care of themselves. They're polite. They're super smart. So nothing's really at risk for any of the characters. So of course we've got to turn it into something else, something set of circumstances that the characters have to work against rather than the characters grappling with themselves. Lin-Manuel Miranda is not a film actor yet. He is a very good stage actor who was thrust into this gigantic project, which at times just swallowed him up. You know, when there's a musical number and, you know, he becomes a showman, that's a whole different story. You know, he takes out his little kit and he dusts off his, you know, Showtime face. But his non-musical moments, to me, seem really self-aware. He spends a lot of time mugging at the camera and giving these self-aware, toothy grins, just like, isn't this magical? And wow, that really got on my nerves. If I could turn back time. And did he have a mediocre Cockney accent as a nod to Dick Van Dyke? Let's make no bones about it. Dick Van Dyke's dialect was terrible, but his performance was so charming that you forgave him. Not the case with Lin-Manuel Miranda for me. Oh, we're going to get to the music in a minute, but he's even given a song in the middle of the animation sequence where he does, you know, kind of his, I guess, signature rap thing. And not only is the music stunningly out of place, but I personally did not come to this film to see a Hamilton commercial. Oh, and they were trying to push some mild romance between the character of Jack and Jane Banks, and it was so manufactured that it went absolutely nowhere. It was like even the script gave up on trying to get that going. The music isn't bad at all. It's delightful. It seems fitting to the time period. There's a little bit of jazz inspired music. It's just that the songs are not very memorable. And one of the reasons is, I think, because they're so like songs from the original Mary Poppins, and those were done better. So those are the ones we want to hum. What got to me about the music was that everything was like a musical bookend. You know, in the first movie we have Spoonful of Sugar. In this movie we have Can You Imagine That? In the first movie we have Step in Time. In this movie we have Triple Little Light Fantastic. Even the ending scene features the song Nowhere to Go But Up, which is written in the same 3/4 time as Let's Go Fly a Kite.
With your fist holding tight to the string of your kite.
Just make a new song. The magic of Mary Poppins. My understanding of kind of the rules of Mary Poppins' world is that it's kind of like there's a privacy or almost like a one-on-one about her magic, as if it's only supposed to happen in front of a few chosen special people, like the Banks children. So it's understandable that the characters are left going, did that really happen? Because no one else was around to see this. It was the whole, you know, if a tree falls in the wood premise. But the end sequence of this film involves dozens of people in broad daylight flying through the air holding balloons. And you're sitting there going, well, how are they going to explain all this away? And they try to, because Angela Lansbury's character says all the grown-ups will forget by tomorrow. And then Mary Poppins responds, they always do. That was just weird, and it broke too many rules of the Mary Poppins world, and it wasn't explained very well, and I thought they were just trying too hard to make the ending so much like Let's Go Fly a Kite. So as a fan of the original film, this is a really tough spot to be in, because I didn't go in going, you know, give me the same old thing. I went in going, let's take a totally new spin. It's 20 years later. Let's do something new with Mary Poppins. And it just didn't really deliver that for me. I think it's a good family film. I think kids will enjoy it. I know kids will enjoy it. It's beautiful. The characters, some of the characters are compelling. There is some fun moments. There's a lot of really cute, fun stuff in it. As an adult, I think you better go in with your nostalgia glasses, because whether you want to wear them or not, they are pressing the nostalgia buttons. And I definitely assert that of these two films, the original Mary Poppins is the one that will stand the test of time. Thanks for joining me for this review. There will be more. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you later.